Hey Flothemers, thank you for coming along and looking at this video. In the following video, I'm going to show you how to use the new Flow Flex block. And this block is going to let you create unique items for your page. And you can really start creating blocks that just gives you a lot of flexibility to build anything that you want with the elements that we have inside this specific Flex block. Now you have 5 different elements that you can use to build pages or to build a specific block, and that is images, text, you can have lines, you can have a button or call to action, and you can have a background. Now using this block, as I said, is going to give you lots of flexibility to create something that is your own. And in this tutorial I'm going to quickly show you how you can replicate a block similar to this for your own site. Of course, this is just going to help teach you the fundamentals of using the Flex block builder, and with that you can go ahead and start creating your own blocks for your website in whatever manner you want. So let's go ahead over to the WordPress backend, and in any page, if you're using our newest themes, you will have the layout section as always, and now you'll have a new block, Flow Flex Builder. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one, so the Flow Flex Builder block. And I'm going to go ahead and edit that. And each block is standalone and can be edited by itself. So again, you can have a combination of blocks, build a large page with one block. That's really up to you. It starts to get a little bit more complicated if you're building larger pages with the block, because the mobile experience may not be as easy to modify and it will take you a lot of time. So I would suggest building them block by block, and then that way you're able to create an easier experience between both mobile and desktop. So let's go ahead and click edit like you always do. And again, you can watch this video again at this video section here. And then to open the block builder interface, we're going to hit open builder. Now this is going to open the block Flex block interface. And as I mentioned, there are 5 different block elements to get started: images, buttons, text, shapes, and lines. And you can easily drag those in to any section here. And of course that will then add that element to the page that you're building. Anytime you add an element, it will be added to the layers tab over here on the right. And again, if you add multiple layers, so if I add another layer option and I check the layers, you can see that they are all then added, and they can be dragged and dropped into order. Again, that will be dependent upon how high up in the hierarchy you would like an element, and you can see how this works later. This is especially useful if you add a background block and you need to move all elements in front of that background block to make it work properly. You would then of course want to position the layers. Let me just quickly show you that so you can understand what I mean. So for example, if I use a shape block and like so, you can see that it covers the other blocks. If I move the shape block to the bottom, the other elements will be placed in front of it. So I'm just going to remove these blocks, and again you can do that by going to the layers section over here, hitting the bin and removing those blocks. So first things first, let's have a look at some of these settings. So you have a block settings area where you can set the block height. In this case I'm going to set a block height of 700 pixels, and that should be more than ample to create the block that we wanted to create that you can see over here. And then you also will see there's a background color. Again, you can set a specific background color per block if you want to. Again, in my case, I'm going to keep it as white. And you also have an option to enable smart guides, and you'll see how that works in a second. Once I add a block here, a smart guide basically shows you positioning from the next elements or from the top and bottom of a specific block, allowing you to, of course, then align the position much better. So you can see this one's 440 pixels from the top, 307 from the bottom, and we would maybe want to move that so it's aligned perfectly center. You can do that exactly with this function. Now moving a block can be done with the keyboard keys. As you can see here, it moves 1 pixel at a time, up and down. You can also move 10 pixels at a time by pressing the shift button. So if you press shift and then up and down, it will of course align this. So again, we could align this button perfectly in the middle. And if you wanted to do 100 pixels at a time, you can press Shift and Command if you're a Mac user, and that will then, of course, move this 100 pixels at a time as well. So that's how you can move elements around, and of course you can do that freehand by yourself by moving it with the mouse here as well, and just drag it into any position and set it there, and that will be it fixed inside this block. Now if you wanted to look at some alignment options to get a better idea as to how to align the page, you can of course enable some of the grids that will let you look at that. So the first option is the theme page edges, and this is the edge of the page that you can see here, and that is generally what the content is fixed to in most of the pages on your website. Of course, there will be cases when that is not true. For example, full screen slideshows, full screen width blocks, they will overwrite the settings for the standard fixed width of the page. Now this does give you a good idea as to how to put elements inside the actual page width itself, as I said, unless you want it to be a full width block. You can then also enable the theme page edges and screen center. This one, really love this one because you can align elements much quicker, because you can see then the middle of the actual page here with this line right in the middle. So this will let you align everything around the page center, and it can be very useful. You'll also have one with columns and gaps. Again, this one is probably the least useful out of these, but it can let you see all the columns that are set up across the page here. So again, you can resize things to fit these columns, and you know they will be aligned nicely. Now, I'm going to use the theme page edges and screen center. I think it will be the most beneficial for most of you. And you can also enable this grid view. Now, once you enable this grid, just know that the blocks are then fixed and move one little square at a time. So whenever you enable this, it is going to be one square that it moves. Whenever you disable this, you can freehand move it any way you want, 1 pixel at a time, and it's much more free. But again, I like to use the actual grid as I like to sort of lock things into position and sort of know where I'm putting them. It just makes aligning things much easier. So I know I need to be 2 blocks away from the edge here, for example. You can sort of move it that 2 blocks that you need away from the edge of the area. As I said, it's up to you to choose if you want this grid view on, so you can sort of see the alignment and everything, or if you want to turn that off, by all means you can do that as well. You will have both a mobile and a desktop version. So if you enabled mobile, you would be able to add the elements into the mobile section, and once the element is added, you can then manipulate it for the mobile version of the site, and it will have its own options as well. So I'm going to remove that for now. Okay, and we'll go back to that later whenever I create the initial view for the desktop with the block that we're going to create today. So we're going to create this first block here, and let's get started. So I'm just going to remove this initial block. So again, very simple to do so. Just go into the layer section and click the bin. And if I want to add a block, I'm just going to hit add block. I'm going to drag and drop that in, and then I can manipulate it whatever way I want. Now, if I wanted to set the positioning, you have the option here to do the X and Y axes. So if you wanted it, of course, X is across the bottom, Y is up and down. So X could be, let's say, 100 pixels. That would be 100 pixels from the left, and Y would be then, of course, from the top. So maybe I wanted 100 pixels from the top. You could set that as well. Of course, most of you, it's unlikely that you'll actually use that for alignment, but that would give you a lot of flexibility to set things specifically in terms of pixel values and positioning. You can set the actual height and width, so you'll see width and height, WH, and in my case I'm going to create this. Let's do the height at 620, and let's keep the width at 640. I'm just going to align that here in the middle. Perfect. If I was to put on D, of course I can see the positioning top and bottom. I see that it's 10 pixels at the top and 158 at the bottom. I would want to align that in the middle, so there's 72. Let's take that down 10 pixels more, so 84 and 84, perfectly aligned in the center of this block. So again, that was pressing D. on the keypad. You can enable the option for the smart guides here that I mentioned earlier that lets you sort of align items specifically in the page. So really useful little feature there. I'm going to keep that on for this tutorial. Now if I want to add an image, go ahead and double click it, click on the image link, and then just choose one of the images from your media library, or of course upload the image as always into WordPress. I'm going to select this block. Let's try this image. That'll do perfectly. And then we have a couple of options available to us. So you'll see that we have an option here to crop the image. And what that does is it then provides you with the option to set the actual image height and positioning, and it will crop the image for you. And that will be constrained by the width and the height you've set inside the block. Or you can disable that, and of course it will then constrain it either by height or by width, depending on the actual block, the way the block is set and the way the ratio of your image is. So I'm going to actually crop this image and then just choose the actual crop myself to get a much more favorable look. So really great feature. You can also use a link if you wanted to link this block. You could add a URL here and that would be clickable, and of course you can put that in a new tab if you want. I'm going to turn it off. We don't need it for this actual tutorial. You can actually set a corner radius, so maybe 60 pixels if you wanted to round the corners. Again, I'm going to turn that off, but it is available too. You could have a border as well. So if you wanted to have a border, you could turn on a border. For example, let's make a blue one just so you can see it. And then you could set the width of that border as well. For example, 10 pixels. Of course, that doesn't look very good. So in my case, I'm going to turn that off as we don't need it right now. So we've added the first block. We then have the layer section here, as you can see. And again, you have a few different options here. You can duplicate elements, so you can duplicate a layer and move it into position if you wish to do so. You can, of course, delete it by hitting the delete element. You can edit that block and get the actual element settings for that. Or you can, of course, change the name as well. So image 1, for example, and that would rename the block. Now, if I was to then add another block, so for example, in this case, I want to add a background block, we can go ahead and do that as well. And to do that, we're going to use the shape option. So shape, and then we're going to, of course, set this the same width, 640, and the height was 620. And again, if you wanted to align that perfectly, you could do so by using the D option. So again, D, and we knew earlier it was 86 top, 84 top and bottom, sorry, like so. And of course, then that would be the two blocks perfectly mirrored and aligned really nicely. Now, we want to then go ahead and add a text block. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, let's add a block text, add the block on here. And then of course we can update the text options. So if you want to edit the text, you have the text editor. You can add the text. So this one we had latest work. Let's just copy that. Latest work. And then we can choose the font. And I'm just going to choose a font for the purposes of this tutorial. So I'm going to choose, let's see, garment, and I'm going to choose the sizing, say 30 pixels, like so. And you'll see that the block here is set, and the font and everything are set here as well. Now, you can, of course, choose bold, italic, underlines, and all of those other nice things. Just make sure to highlight it first before you go ahead and apply that. So that it actually works. You could set the colors here as well. You'll see there's a color option, and you can select any of the colors available or add a hex color, and you can choose the alignment. For example, align center. That can be done also. You also have the option to add a link on any piece of text. So if you highlight again the text, add a link, you can insert a link and choose the option to insert and open in a new tab. You have options for line height. So if this is a paragraph, for example, you can set a line height for that as well. Of course, you can set the letter spacing as well, just if you want to, of course, give a bit more space to the text. So again, just make sure that you do highlight it before you go and apply that as well, so that actually applies. And yeah, one more option again would be vertical alignment. You can align vertical top, middle, and bottom with any block. So you can, of course, position things the way you like. Or you can set the height to auto, for example, like so, and of course then the height of this block will be automatic. I'm just going to leave it height off for now, but it is a pretty useful feature to set height to auto for most of your text blocks. Now you can also set a background color to this specific area. Again, apply whatever you want. We don't need it in our case for this tutorial. Again, that tutorial radius would be for the border. You can add back outline and borders as well if you want to do that as well around the text. Again, we're going to turn that off, but just know the feature is available too to give you a lot of flexibility. Now, one thing you'll notice whenever I click off the block on the background block, for example, that you can no longer see the text. That's just because we've selected the block that is in front of it, and of course that pulls the block to the front. Now, if the shape was actually at the top here, it would actually go over the text normally, but of course you'll always want to keep the shape below if you're going to use it for a background. We can change the color of this as well. So I didn't show you the settings for the actual shape, but you can do that again. Same as any other block, edit it. You can use a background color. You don't have to have a background color. Maybe you wanted to have a transparent block over something to make it clickable, a really great feature that can be done if you wanted to, for example, make this whole image clickable. You could put a shape over it and then make it with no color, and then insert a link, and that would make it all clickable. Of course, the link does have a click option itself, but it could be used for different areas. Maybe you wanted the entire page to be clickable or the entire block to be clickable. You could do that with just a transparent block. Of course, I'm going to use a background color in our case. Again, radiuses, links can all be enabled, the same options that can be seen inside the other blocks. Now let's go ahead, and we've added our title. Now we're going to add an underline. Again, I'm not going to get it picture perfect here based on the fun options. We're just going to create this quickly for the purpose of this tutorial, but it just gives you a good idea as to how you could create that. So again, add the line and of course position it whatever way you want. So I'm going to first double click this. I'm going to set the width of this to say 250 pixels. And just click hide over here a second, just click off the area so I can get it again. And then I'm just going to move it in the middle. Let's move that over here. And we want that to be around 250 each way. So let's just say that's 209 to this side. Let's just move it across over here. 235. So it looks like 230 is right bang in the middle, and that's perfect. This one actually isn't aligned, and again I'm going to do that right now. Just holding shift to moving that across. 193, 194. That is pretty much perfect for what we need. So that's nicely aligned, and we've added the element here for the line. Again, you can choose the color, the line height as well. Again, maybe you want 11 pixels. You can go ahead and set that line weight also. And of course, choose the line color as you wish. You can also rotate elements. So maybe I wanted to add 90 degrees to this little line. So maybe I wanted to add the line over here. You could actually rotate the line as well. And that is using the angle feature that is over here. So it's the last element at the top. And I'm just going to set that back to 0. If you wanted to undo something, you can just hit the undo option, and of course it will move it back into the position that you had it previously. So I'm just going to move this back. Let's go and set this to 0. And I'm just going to move this block again as we had right in the middle here. Hopefully I can get it nice and quickly. There we go. So 230 and 230, perfect. And let's just move it up a little bit tighter. So again, we want to get that a little bit closer. Okay, that looks great. Of course, we did change the color in our tutorial. Again, I can change the color here, make it lighter, like so, as you can see. Now I want to add another image. So again, really simple, add the block, throw down the image here, put it in the position, set the sizing that you want. This one looks like a 3:4 format, so I'm just going to set this to, let's say, 300 by 200. And let's have a look how that is. Maybe a little bit bigger. Let's try 350 by, let's do 300. Okay, 300, perfect. And then double click that, choose the image option, and let's pick a little image for that. Great. So let the image load. Again, crop option or don't crop it, it's really up to you. Of course, if you want specific image sizing options, then you will want to crop that. It will make it a bit easier for you. And again, I'm just going to align that in the middle. So let's just go 180, 180 based on the sizing. That's it, perfectly aligned. I'm actually going to make that smaller based on what we've seen in the tutorial. So 250 gives a bit more space. And perfect. Let's even make that a little bit smaller, 200. Let's do the initial 300 by 200 we've seen. It's actually more in line with what we have here in the tutorial. And again, I'm just going to realign that. 220, 200, 205. Fantastic. Now, let's go ahead and add some more text again. Really simple. Just drag the text in here. And again, you can just double click it, edit the text block. I'm going to choose a font. Again, I'm using Cormorant or Cormorant. I'm using Cormorant for this one, so Garment. Again, let's set the sizing. I'm going to add this title block. Select it all. Make sure we have selected the size and the font, and I'm going to align that center also. So let's just check it out and align this block. Right here in the middle. Let's just make this size a bit smaller here. And just put it right in the middle. There we go. So very close, nicely aligned here. And then we can add a little subtitle, again, just another piece of text here, right below it, like so. Double click it, edit this, choose the text that you want. I'm going to choose this little script text, and there you go. You can see that it is beautiful. So I'm going to align it center because it makes it easier to align things for this option. Whenever we are aligning all the items in the middle, align in the center, and that way then we can see how to align the block here perfectly by looking at the left and right options here. So I want to get that to around 214 each side, and that's it, perfectly aligned in the center. Finally, we're going to add the last element that we haven't shown you yet, and that is a button. I'm going to add a call to action. And again, just align that quickly. There we go, perfect. Now the buttons, you can of course choose the font options as we've shown you before, set the sizing, bold, etc. You can also set the width and height of this block. Maybe you want it to be fixed 50 pixels in height and the size to be 150 pixels in width. You can do so. Let's just move that up a little bit closer. Perfect. And then of course you will want to enable the link option, add the link to whatever page that it is you want to connect to. So I'm just going to go to the home page, but of course you'll link it to whatever page you need to go to. You can use a new tab if it's an external source, or you want to keep this page open. You can open in a new tab, and you can then add a background color. So in this case, I'm going to choose a black background color. That means the text itself should be white. So I'm going to choose white for that. And I'm actually going to make this text, let's select the text font. I'm going to use Nanito. I am going to set the sizing to 13, which it is now, perfect. And we can then enable the option to invert the button on hover. So that will mean the button turns white, the text turns black. And again, a pretty cool feature for that also. Now, you could set a border on here as well and choose the color if you wanted. I'm going to keep the border on, but I'm going to keep it black. So just on hover, it will remain as always. So again, similar to the block that's here, you could actually turn off the background color if you didn't want that, as is shown in the demo here. But I'm going to keep it on so you can see the hover effect. It gives you a it's a nice feature of this button. So let's just keep that enabled. Now, once you are happy with your block and how it looks, you can go ahead and save that and then check it out. So just go ahead and save the block. It does save the entire page and it updates it. So you can then go ahead and click refresh on here from the front end and have a little look as to what the new block looks like. Again, we didn't go pixel for pixel with this. Fonts and everything were matched perfectly, as we want to just show you how to use this block, how to use this new block as effectively as possible. And this tutorial hopefully covers some of those details. So let me just refresh this page once it's saved, and then I'll be able to show you how this block actually looks. Then I will quickly show you how to use the mobile, and you'll be able to see how we can add some and manipulate some of the views on the mobile view, and this way you'll be able to create a much better experience for your users. So now it's saved, we can go ahead over and view the block, and you can see the block here. Again, I'll show you the hover effect. It does turn that to the opposite, and again that will link off to the home page. So that's it, folks. That is how you create a block with the flex block. We're just going to quickly look at how you then change it on mobile. So again, let's go over to the back end, go to the mobile section, and now we'll have the option here for a mobile view on the left hand side. Now, all you have to do is drag the blocks over here and resize them according to the mobile view and how you would like those to look as well. So again, I'm just going to freehand this one, just to drag that in. Once the block is added, it will be ticked, and you can't add additional elements to the mobile. You can only use the existing elements from the actual block that you've created. So if you needed to have a different experience from mobile, you'll probably want to create a different block, hide one or the other on desktop, etc. I'm going to add the text in here as well, like so. And again, you'll want to adjust all of the items for that. So we would just double click it, same as always, update the actual font here itself, choose the font, choose the sizing for mobile, so let's say 22, slightly smaller. And again, now over here, you'll see the layers specifically just for the mobile experience. So we only have 2 layers added right now, but you can see that they're added to the page. Again, I can add this next little image block here. Again, just go ahead and align that perfectly. And the title block, let's just go drag that in as well, like so. Again, just double click it, make sure you set your fonts properly and the sizing you want for that. So again, I'm going to set 15 pixels because it's mobile, just to align that. And again, this is something that will, again, we will improve and change over time. But for now, this does give you a lot of flexibility to create a nice mobile view. So let's drag in this section as well, the little description. I'm going to keep that the size it is, it's easy to read. And finally, the call to action. And let's just drag that in. Let's drag the width out and set the sizing a little smaller. There we go. drag that down, and perfect. So that's the mobile view created, and now when you go to preview that on mobile, just go ahead and hit save progress again. Once it's saved, the mobile view will be there and you'll have a perfectly responsive mobile experience for your new block. So that's an overview video, and we covered quite a lot in here as to how to use the flex block, and hopefully it's going to allow you to create some unique blocks and a great experience on your website for your users, and we're excited to see what you guys create. So please share with us the blocks that you do create, and that would be amazing to see. Go ahead, start creating and use the flex block today. Thanks.